it's your girl Kayla. Welcome back to my channel. Today, we're in front of my bookshelf again, and we are going to talk about all the books that I read this month of November, okay? If any of you guys watched my November TBR, you'll know that it was a little ambitious, and I did not get through all of them. I'll be upfront and honest, but I did get through a big chunk of books. I finished 7 books this month, so this has been a pretty good reading month for me, and it's put me ahead of my Goodreads schedule, so I'm super pumped about it. So without further ado, let's get to talking about the books that I finished this month. The first few books I'm going to talk about are actually books that I started in October, but I finished them in November, so I'm going to include them in this video anyway. So the first one was my buddy read with my friend Brittany for the month of October, and that was Water for Elephants by Sarah Gruen. So neither of us really knew much about this book going in. We both knew it was about a circus and elephants, and that's about it. And Brittany was saying, she's like, oh, I thought it was gonna be like a family-friendly story about the circus. No. This book was a lot darker than either of us anticipated, but nevertheless, I still really enjoyed the story. So this book follows, our main character is Jacob Jankowski, and when we see him at the beginning of the book, he is about to take his final exams to finish college at Cornell University and become a veterinarian. And then something tragic happens, and he's unable to finish, and he ends up without a home or without anything, and he's just walking. He's just walking towards the nearest town, hoping to find some sort of work or someplace to stay, and he ends up jumping a train when he gets super exhausted, and this train is a traveling circus train. And so this book just follows his escapades the whole summer that he's on the train. There's intrigue, there's forbidden romance, and it's a lot darker than I would have imagined. So there's a lot of good contrast in this story, I think, because of the contrast of this circus is being set in the 30s, so like right around the Great Depression. So there's the fantastic and enchanting atmosphere of the circus, but then there's behind the scenes, how things really aren't that great. People are homeless, people are getting paid, and the fabrication that the people go through to keep this circus looking fantastical. And then there's also, within the story, there's another contrast where it starts out and you learn about Jacob, and it's in the present time, and he's 93 and he's in a nursing home, and then it goes in between that and flashbacks of the story of him being in the circus in the 30s. And so I thought that was a really interesting aspect to it that the writer chose to do, but I think sometimes it kind of was jarring in the story because you would be so entranced in this world of the circus, and then all of a sudden it would go to the nursing home in the present, and I would just get so confused. I'd be like, wait, oh, that's where we are. Okay, that makes sense. I did watch the movie after I read the book, and what the movie did was they put the story of Jacob in his 90s at the beginning, and then they had the whole story of the circus, and then him again at the end. And I think that helped things flow better, where the book wasn't that way. Another thing I really loved about the book, there was kind of a mystery that was going on, because this isn't really a spoiler because it happens in the prologue, right at the beginning of the book. So the beginning of the book starts out, and you see characters Marlena and Rosie, and then you find out that there's this crazy stampede of animals, and that someone dies. And you don't really know who it is or who killed them, but they were murdered. And so it's kind of like the whole time you're reading this book of, when is this going to happen? How is this going to go down? Who's going to do it? What's going to happen? And so that was a little bit of suspense that I really enjoyed in this book. At times it was kind of hard to read some of the things that went on behind the scenes of the circus, and it was crazy reading the author's notes at the end, how many of these stories were true. It's just this whole world that I had never had an experience with reading about or hearing about. So I really enjoyed that, and I look forward to reading more historical fiction, because I think that that's kind of a category or a genre of books that I don't have much experience with, so I really enjoyed it. The next book that I finished in November is The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. Oh my god, that's a mouthful. By Marianne Schaefer and Annie Barrows. I don't have it with me because I had to return it to the library, but I wanted to read this book because I saw the trailer for the movie on Netflix, and it had Lily James, and I love her, and I was like, oh, this looks so good. It's a book about books. So basically, this story follows our main character, Juliet, and it's set in England right after the end of World War II. So Juliet is a writer, and she wrote kind of parody pieces during the war to raise spirits, but now she wants to write something real. And she finds out about this British island, Guernsey, that was occupied by the Germans during the war. And she finds out about this society that was formed by some of the members that lived on the island, this literary society, and how it helped them during this terrible time of occupation. And so the interesting thing about this book is that it's written all in letters, back and forth. And I thought that it would make that a really easy read. So this book is less than 300 pages, and it's all written in letters, and I thought it would be a super quick read, but for some reason it took me a long time to get into it, and I don't even know why. Maybe it was just a slow start, but there was some point in the story, and I can't identify it, where I was just reading, and all of a sudden I found myself so attached to these characters. Like, I wanted to be friends with them. I felt like I was close with them, and I just really wanted to know what happened next. So once I hit that whatever switch that was, I finished the book super quick. But it took me a while to get into it, and I don't really know why. Nonetheless, once I got into it, I really did enjoy the story. It was at times heartbreaking to hear about things that actually did happen during this time of occupation and during the World War. It's just like a terrible time of history, and there's so many things that went on that we don't even know about. And so, but I do nonetheless really love reading books set during this time period. I read The Book Thief earlier this year, so it's been really eye-opening. But nonetheless, I really did enjoy the characters and the story. I thought it was super cute. The only thing that was kind of hard about reading it in letters is that it seemed sort of passive. So you wouldn't be with the characters during the events, you would only hear about them afterwards. So I thought that kind of affected the storytelling a little bit, but I thought, of course, the idea of letters was super cute. And then the only other thing was the ending was so abrupt. Like, all of a sudden at the end I was like, yes, finally things are happening, and they weren't. The book was just over, and I was like, oh, okay. But anyway, the story was really cute, and I loved how they incorporated the importance of books into it. And I think I'm glad I read the book before I watched the movie. The movie was super, super good, but I'm glad that I read the book and got to know some of the side characters more than they didn't receive that much screen time in the movie. I think the movie did handle the ending very well. They kind of expanded it a little bit, and so I thought that was good. The next book is the last book that I started in October and finished in November, and this was Glass Sword by Victoria Aveyard. I'll hold up King's Cage because I don't have Glass Sword anymore. I had to return it. But this is the second book. Glass Sword was the second book in the Red Queen series. And this one also took me so long to read. I don't know what's wrong with me, but like, I don't know how I feel about this book. I don't know. This sounds terrible. I'm trying to find like nice things to say about this book. Anyway, so I don't want to spoil too much, but I talked about Red Queen in my last video. Red Queen is set in this world where people are differentiated by their blood. So there's the lower class, which has red blood, and they're the workers and the soldiers and the servants, and then the higher classes, the nobles and the merchants, and they have silver blood, and they also have powers. But then we find out about Mare Barrow, who's the main character of the story, who is a red, but she also has silver abilities. She's able to control lightning and electricity. This book, it gets crazy. There's just a lot going on. One thing that I did really enjoy was learning about all these new bloods and all of the different abilities that they had. Like, each one was different, and I thought that was really cool. All of the different abilities that Victoria Aveyard was able to come up with, but I just couldn't find myself really getting into this book. It took me forever. I was super mad because one of my favorite characters died. Like, I'm trying not to spoil anything. Oh my gosh. But I was just so frustrated with the main character the whole time. I don't know where this is going. I don't know what it was. I just think that Mare's decisions and the way that she backs them up, like, I couldn't believe it. I'm so mad at her for the decisions that she's making and the way that she's justifying them. Like, it's not things that normal people would do. I'm just hoping that Cal will bring her back down to earth, but I don't know. We'll see if I continue with these series anytime soon. The only reason I might is because there was kind of a crazy cliffhanger at the end, and we'll see if my curiosity for what happens next overcomes my annoyance with the main character. The next book I read was totally an impromptu read, and it was not even on my TBR, but it was a reread, and I just picked it up and I read it in a day. This was Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, the original screenplay by J.K. Rowling, because if you guys don't know, Crimes of Grindelwald came out a couple weeks ago in the middle of November, and I was gearing up to see the movie opening weekend, and I was like, hey, I'm just gonna reread the screenplay and then watch the first movie and then watch the second movie. So that's what I did. My favorite thing about this book, though, it's just literally the screenplay in book form, which I think is really fun. I really enjoy reading screenplays and just like scripts. I think it's really cool to get that side of the story. So and it's really cool because it's just like reliving the movie. But I just love this book because it's so beautiful, like this 1920s style jacket, and then even the book is beautiful without the jacket. Like, let's just take a moment to appreciate this. It's so beautiful, and look, there's a little niffler on the front. Look how cute he is. And even the end pages, I just love it. Look at this fun print. And then on the inside, there's all of these like beautiful line designs, and a lot of them are like pictures of some of the creatures. Like, look, there's a Murtlap. So that's why I enjoy reading this. And even though Crimes of Grindelwald was kind of crazy and there was a lot trying to happen at once, I'm probably still gonna get the screenplay and read it because, let's be honest, I'm a little biased and will probably consume everything that J.K. Rowling ever puts out. So there you have it. The next book that I finished in November was The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy by Mackenzie Lee. This is the sequel to The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, and it follows sort of the same characters, but in the first book it was following mostly Monty, and now the main character is his sister Felicity, which I thought was so cool. I was so excited to read in this historical world from a girl's point of view, so that was really exciting. It follows this crazy escapade as Monty and his friend Percy and Felicity are trying to like escape pirates. Like, I don't even know. It was crazy. Nothing like you would expect, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was so funny, but it also touched on issues that are not even talked about today, let alone in the 1700s. So I thought that was really fun, and I was so excited to read from Felicity's point of view because she is a strong, independent woman, and that is the best thing that I loved about this book. This follows Felicity as she's trying to get a foot into the medical field. She really wants to be a doctor. That is her dream goal. And not just a nurse or a midwife. She wants to be a doctor, a surgeon. She wants to be right up in there. And at this time, the medical field was controlled completely by men, and they were sexist men at that. So it's really cool to see a character in that time trying to defeat the patriarchy. I really liked that. We had a lot of strong female characters in this book, and that was my favorite part about it. But it was also really cool just to kind of get to check up on some characters from the first book, like some of the pirates and Monty and Percy. So that was really fun, and overall I did really enjoy this book. I don't know if she's gonna have any more, but I don't even know. What would Mackenzie Lee do for the next book? Either way, I enjoyed it, and it was a light, fun, super quick read, even though it was 400 something pages. I enjoyed it. The next book after that I finished this month was The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. This book, where have I been? Like, I know this book has been out for a while and everyone was talking about it, but like, I think I was living under a rock because I never got around to reading it, but I'm so glad that I finally did. This book made me feel things. Like, what the heck? Oh my gosh. Anyway, it's just like, this book tackles some really heartbreaking topics, but it also just like makes you feel so much nostalgia and hopefulness. So this story follows our main character, Charlie, and in the beginning of the book, he's just starting out freshman year of high school, and he has a lot of like anxiety and past problems that he's dealing with, and loss and grief, and it's just his story of going through his first year of high school and trying to fit in and trying to find friends. This is probably a terrible description of the book, but it was just so heartwarming. I don't even know. I don't even know how to explain my love for this book. It's crazy. Like, it made me feel infinite, and I know that's so cheesy, but I loved it, and I can't wait to read it again. It was heartbreaking. I cried. I was on the way to church, and I was in the car crying, and my mom was like, she's crazy. So, I loved it. How many times can I say that? Too many. Too many. This book was also written in letters, and it was interesting because it was Charlie, and he was writing kind of like it was his journal, but every letter was addressed to dear friend, and there's a couple of hints to like who this friend is, but you never find out, which I thought was interesting. Unless I'm just dumb and I missed something. That's entirely possible. But I just loved the voice that Charlie had. I remember I talked about Guernsey, the Guernsey Literary and Potato Pie Society, how those letters I had trouble reading, and I thought it interrupted the story, but this one, it didn't interrupt the story. I guess it helped that there was some dialogue written in with the letters, but I don't know what it was about it. I just loved the voice that Charlie had in these letters. I think it just reminded me maybe of the way that I write in my journal. He's just a small bean. I want to love him forever. Anyway, I'm glad that I finally read it, and I already want to reread it, and I want to watch the movie. It was beautiful. Finally, the last book that I finished this month is 3 Dark Crowns by Kendar Blake. This was my November buddy read with my friend Brittany, and I really enjoyed it. I haven't really read a proper fantasy in a while, so it was exciting to get kind of back into that mindset. This book follows this island of Fenburn, where every generation there are 3 queens, triplets, born, and they each have different gifts and magical abilities, and when they turn 16, they have to basically fight to the death. Queen that is the last one standing gets to be queen. So it's a very dark world, and I really enjoyed the story. I thought it was really interesting, and there was a lot of plot twists that I never saw coming, and so I really am looking forward to hopefully reading the next one, One Dark Throne, soon. Things I'll say about this book: the writing style took me a while to get used to, and I don't know why. Kendar Blake writing is very straightforward and to the point. It's like if you miss a sentence, you might miss a really important plot line. Like, she doesn't give a lot of fluffy details or things like that. It's just very straight to the point. And my friend Brittany is like that in real life. And she was like, yeah, I enjoyed it. But I think it just took me some getting used to. Maybe it's just because I've been reading a lot of Cassandra Clare this year, and Cassandra Clare is like very overly descriptive. The only thing I thought it hindered was like I didn't get to know the characters as well. I mean, this book was very character driven. There's not a lot of plot. There is plot, but it doesn't pick up until the end of the book. The last 100 pages of this book, I was like, oh my god, what is going down right now? So if you find it slow at the beginning, just keep going because it gets better. And I've heard from reviews that the next book is like crazy, so I'm really excited to get to that. Like I was saying, it's very character driven, but at the same time, like, because of the writing style, I felt like I didn't really understand the characters very well. I thought that I was longing for more. I wanted to know why they were doing what they were doing, what's their motivation, like, what drives them, and I felt like I didn't get that as much, but maybe I just need to read harder. Who knows? I was also wanting more about this island and the political intrigue and how this came to be. Like, how did it come to be that they decided that the queen has to kill her sisters? I don't know. I just wish there was more. And I've heard that there is a novella bind up of one that kind of gives some more backstory, so I really want to get to that because I was just left wanting more. I'm like, how did this come to be? Like, I want to know the history of this island. I want to know their political ties. How do they get along with the mainlanders? I want to know more about the magic system. I just wanted to know more, which I guess is good. Like, it kept me drawn into the world. And so overall, I did really enjoy the story. It was really dark and really intriguing, and not like anything I've ever really read before. So I'm excited to continue the series, hopefully soon. While 3 Dark Crowns was the last book that I finished this month, I thought I would mention this one as well. I know in my TBR video, I was like, I'm gonna read all the Cassandra Clare books. I didn't do that. But I did start City of Heavenly Fire in the last couple days of the month, and so I'm like almost 300 pages into this, but this book is over 700 pages long, so I have a while to go. But I'm hoping to finish it as soon as possible because my dad has been doing the read along with me. I've been giving him the books in publication order, but he's been behind me this whole time, which works out well. Like, I read the book and then I give it to him. He's on Clockwork Princess, which comes before this, but he's at the epilogue, and I've just started this, so I'm like, oh, I'll try to finish it as soon as possible, Dad, so you can read it. I'm sorry. Anyway, this is a reread for me. I read it for the first time last calendar year sometime, I think. And, of course, I really enjoyed it. I will always enjoy anything in the Shadowhunter Chronicles, and I thought it was a good wrap-up for the Moorland Schmidt's characters. Obviously, I do like the first 3 books. It's kind of like in separate trilogies. We have the first 3 books up through City of Glass, and then it like has a nice ending, but then you just get so much more with the characters, and I love them so much, and so I was glad that we got more. I love it. So anyway, I'm rereading this right now. I'll probably include it in my next month's wrap-up, but I just thought I'd update you on where I am on that. So that's it, guys. That is all the books that I read this November. Thank you so much for watching. I post new videos on Wednesdays and Saturdays, so be sure to tune in for the next one. Thanks, guys. Bye. Guernsey and Literary Potato... What? The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. Wow, that is a mouthful. Ugh. I feel like I need to form some more coherent analysis of this book, but I can't even think of anything besides the fact that I loved it. This review is not coherent at all. Cohesive. Coherent? Both? I'm a reader. I know words. That's it, guys. That is my November TBR. Thank you so much for... Nope, that's not TBR. It's... I'm sorry. I'm not usually this salty. I don't know what's gotten into me.